Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Locker Room. As always, we appreciate your time, what you invest in joining us on these sessions. But I do want to give you an opportunity to pause the video, pause your podcast right here. Go ahead and change clothes, because I didn't know this when we planned this, but apparently it's a formal episode of the Locker Room. So my name is Jim Carmack. Let me introduce you to the always dapper, polished, very stylish Pastor Jim Locke.
I think it's time we dress things up a little bit around here, you know.
I wish I had known, because I would have worn a suit too.
Just a little bit too casual here in recent days.
It's called the Locker Room. It's supposed to be casual.
Well, just call me Coach Dean Smith. I'm
like
throwing
that.
back to the
Tom
days
Landry. I get you.
when the coaches wore suits on the sidelines,
Which was a much better day.
and suits on the courts. Now everybody's dressed out in a track style suit. And the like, and hoodies and the things of that nature. I'm going back old school. You know, at my first church, this was the look, all the time. I didn't wear a suit every day to the office, but I wore slacks every day to the office.
Yeah.
And wouldn't be uncommon for a dress shirt as well. But every Sunday, you know, you got that look going on. There's people here at Hillcrest wish I'd bring that back.
They do.
It's just too hot in Florida. Missouri is one thing, but it gets a little toasty.
Yeah.
No, I had a memorial service this morning.
Yeah.
Just a little bit ago prior to our taping, and so didn't have time to leave, change clothes, and then come back. So I decided that we would do an Easter Sunday version of our podcast today.
Okay.
I normally wear a suit on Easter.
Absolutely.
In honor of the
And you know what?
great day that
you know what
it
the
is.
favorite suit is?
Which is that?
You know the favorite of your suits that you wear on Easter?
Well, it's the cream colored
There it is.
cotton suit.
Yes. That's styling.
That's your favorite suit.
That's styling, though.
You know, I bought
you
that.
pull that off, though. That's what I'm saying.
That's kind of my Southern lawyer suit. You know,
Your Atticus Finch.
Well, that's about right.
Yeah.
You know, he wore those light suits, and he probably it's the only suit he had. But yes, that's kind of a throwback to right out of a John Grisham novel.
I love it. Yeah.
Harry Rex.
Well, it's memorable. That's the thing. It's memorable when you wear it, and that's what I'm saying. We notice it.
I bought
good.
that. I
It looks
still
good.
have it, and proud to say that I can still wear it. I bought that suit for my daughter's college graduation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And boy, did I ever get a deal on it. I think I bought that suit. I have a place that I normally buy my suits. I don't buy a lot of suits. That one came from the old Steinmart here in town.
I remember.
And you could get some good clothes in Steinmart.
Yeah, my wife
no
used to work
joke.
there. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, name brand stuff for a fraction of the cost. So I did. I got a deal on that cotton suit. I think the whole thing cost me about $80, brand new, pants and jacket.
Bargain.
So yes, and I wore that to Whitney's, and I mean, I posted pictures like family after her graduation from Sanford. Posted pictures on Instagram, and the thing blew up. I remember David Wiggins posting. He called it a white suit. It was not a white suit. It was a light khaki,
Very light khaki.
suit.
It's whitish.
But yeah,
It's in the white. It's mother of pearl.
I rocked it. I'll admit
I
it.
know. That's what I'm saying. You do. It's legendary because
I
we
think
remember.
I wore that last Easter. Didn't
I think you did.
Yeah.
Well, last year or the year before. I know it's recently you've worn it because it slays, as the kids say.
Well, maybe I'll have to.
I don't know.
Maybe I'll have to bring it back out. I've had it up for the winter.
Sure.
And so it's in my back closet, not in my. I have a spare bedroom closet that I take the lighter clothes into for winter, the short sleeve shirts and the like, and then switch them out with the heavier stuff when it's time for the seasonal change. So maybe we'll bring that out either. Maybe Palm Sunday, Easter.
I think it's good.
I don't rule it out. But yes, I used to have a seersucker suit. Blue and white seersucker. I don't have it anymore.
Why not?
Well, for one thing, that was 25, 30 years ago. And it was probably a size 40 regular, which was about, 6 sizes ago. So that is gone. I probably went to the Goodwill store or gave it to somebody.
Yeah.
But that was a sharp look.
Why were they called
I
that?
tell you
Why were
who's
they
got
called?
one of those here. Well, I probably shouldn't. I don't know. Is it appropriate to name names?
No, don't name
probably-
names. It's just safer.
Well, we got a guy at our church, maybe a little bit younger than me.
Tell me what his name rhymes with. Okay, don't get it.
I was about to come out with something real quick, but he rocks the seersucker suit,
Yeah.
and he does it a lot of times on Easter. And if he does it again this year, he still is very active at Hillcrest. If he's listening to this, he knows who he is.
I think I know who you're
He's
talking
a friend
about.
Of mine.
Yeah, don't call him out. That's not.
And so, at any rate,
But why were they called
here's the thing.
seersucker suits?
Everybody at Hillcrest is a friend of mine.
Absolutely.
Just to clarify the remark.
Of course.
By
Of
the
course.
way, not to change subjects, but we'll come back to that.
Okay.
While it's on my mind, I made a major mistake Sunday morning.
Okay.
I dropped a name. Speaking of name dropping, I dropped a name and it was the wrong name.
Oh, no.
In the sermon,
Oh,
in the
no.
first hour only. So, I was, and it wasn't in my notes, wasn't in my outline, nothing. But it came to my mind when I was talking about being faithful unto death, not compromising your testimony, and how much courage it takes to do that.
Yeah.
I spoke of the Columbine high school situation
Yeah.
where the young lady was told to recant, wouldn't do it, and unfortunately her life was taken. And I called her name as Casey Anthony. Well, Casey Anthony was another high-profile person who was accused of basically, taking her baby's life.
Yes.
Though she was found not guilty by the court. And so one of my colleagues came and said, you may want to check that name. And I had to, I said, what did I say? And he told me, and I said, yeah, I think that's what I said. So just to clarify the record, it was not Casey Anthony. It was Cassie Bernal. Cassie. I was on the right track. But
Yeah.
again, that was added in. And this is a lesson about
what's the
ad-libbing.
lesson here? Yeah.
God, I
Stick
tell
to your
young
notes.
preachers,
Yeah.
be very wary about chasing a rabbit, especially with a situation where you get the details mixed up. Now, nobody else has said anything about that, but I hate it when I get a detail wrong.
Sure.
I did it one time years ago with a bridge, and I misnamed the bridge, thinking that I had it right, and I didn't. And I had a person who was from the area where that bridge was come up after church
no.
and said, you got your bridges mixed up. I said Golden Gate Bridge, and she said, you were talking about the Bay Bridge. The Bay Bridge goes to Oakland. The Golden Gate Bridge goes north to Marin County from San Francisco. And she was right.
Yeah.
So I had said that the Golden Gate Bridge went to Oakland, and it does not. And that was before I'd ever even been to San Francisco. So I hate it when that happens. So
I'm always
anyway.
nervous when I do those, when I pull out another Bible verse or something that lines up that is not in my notes.
And it's not the right
well,
verse.
or if I paraphrase it, or I get
Yeah.
something out of order, because I always want to quote Bible verses accurately, and you kind of say the meaning of it or the gist of it, and then I'm always second guessing. Oh gosh, did I say it right? Did I say it out of order? It's just I do the same thing. I try not.
I do that with old hymns.
Yeah.
When I say a phrase in the pulpit and it brings to mind an old hymn. Happened in the second service on Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'll start to quote the hymn and lose it. I'll get the first couple of phrases right and then can't remember what the third phrase
That's
is.
what you know the rest.
And then you make, or you make something up.
You remember, don't you? You know what it was.
Holy smoke. I think we're safer talking about clothes.
Well, why do they call it a seersucker suit?
Now, you know what? I really don't know that.
Okay.
My stepfather, who had one for years, he was a pretty nappy dresser, still is. He called it, for whatever reason, an ice cream suit because it looks like the clothing that the ice cream salesman of old, who drove the ice cream carts through the old, courthouse town
The
squares.
neighborhoods, yeah.
Used to dress like that. But I'll have to look that up. I don't know why they call it seersucker. Maybe that's the name of the material, kind of like Glen Plaid.
Yeah. I'm sure, I know there's a reason. I just can't remember what it is or why, but I remember the term. And then trying to see what it was. So yeah, we'll do some investigative work. You probably know. If you do, send us an email, podcast@hillcrestchurch.com. Let us know why.
Our host has a prize for you.
Yeah, well,
you did get it right.
What do you say, a Snickers bar? I'll find you. I'll buy you a Snickers
Dip
bar.
into your mini bag of first impressions gifts.
That's right. Happy to do that. Happy to do that. I wanted you to know, in your honor, I pulled out this coffee cup today, this mug, because we were talking about the Olympics last week.
Yep. Sochi.
So this was given
the
back
Russian Olympics.
when I used to work at Channel 3 during the time, and the company that owned our station and other stations around, Channel 40 in Tallahassee, was running the Olympics, the NBC station. And so we used to do weather cut-ins. We'd record the weather for them in Tallahassee. And so they sent our weather department, our meteorologists, all got mugs from the Winter Olympics in Sochi in 2014. And I share that with you because I look back and I think 2014, I got this mug like last week. And now I realize that it's 12 years ago. And this is
years ago.
Wild. So in honor of the Winter Olympics going on, that we'll talk more about because you don't like
I'm telling you,
yet.
man, I did a memorial service this morning. And, at every memorial service, we talk about the importance of being ready. And, time flies.
Yeah.
Time is just flying by. Yeah. There used to be a time in my ministry, pretty much pre-Florida, where when you got to January and February, things slowed down. They really did slow down. Yeah. Of course, I lived in the middle of the country for that 10-year period of time, and we would have winter weather. So we knew it was coming. We didn't know how severe or the frequency of snowfalls, but we get 2-3 snowfalls a year, usually 8 inches, sometimes as much as a foot of snow. And and then it'd hang around for a while, melt off, moderate, and then come back again, have another snowfall. So we just knew it was high risk to plan anything that was significant in January and February. So things kind of slowed down. We still did church, had our full Sunday activities, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday nights, various other things, gatherings, things of that nature we would have, but we wouldn't plan anything big. So, and then it would snow, and nobody expects you to do much. So things just kind of slowed down. They do not slow down in January and February. The last 6-8 weeks, really, since the beginning of the year, we've hit the ground running and have had the calendar chock full of things. I, basically was only home for a fleeting moment of time. We had full morning of activities. I had a meeting regarding an upcoming trip that we're doing as a church. Yesterday, that lasted about an hour right after the second service. Then we left, went home, kind of tried to catch 40 winks before I then had to come back for Discover Hillcrest.
Yeah.
Then we had a memorial service here at the church this morning, full range of activities through the day today. So we are just finding ourselves running nonstop, which we like. We rather it be that way than the other way.
Yeah.
But it's just a busy season. And all that to say, you look up and you thought it was 2014. And, that was 12 years ago.
12
That's
years.
crazy.
I know.
And then your grandkids, the thing about kids, time speeds up when you have kids. And kids put a face on time. They change, then they get involved in all these activities, and you're moving and shaking, and you're coming and you're going, and time just speeds up. It really doesn't, but it does. And you stay so busy, you kind of lose focus a little bit. Grandkids are the same way. Now that, we've got the little ones, now we're watching them change before our eyes. And so the whole idea of, finding balance, living intentionally, and taking charge. Don't let, you manage things. Don't let things manage you. Yeah. And being intentional and building in quiet time, rest, allowing yourself to recharge. I just find that even at this season of my life, and I'm nowhere short of drawing the curtain, but nowhere close to it, But even in this season of my life where you think, okay, I'm in a position now where I can release this and turn loose of that and do that, you know, as much as possible. And it's like, okay, it's not helping. Why is it not helping?
Yeah.
Still, there's a lot of stuff to be done. And we want to stay active and stay engaged, but you also have to be very intentional, make sure you're tending to your family and having some personal time and just to be down, you know,
priorities.
and to recharge.
Yeah. I heard it explained once, and it was really interesting to me. And I'm not claiming this is some kind of psychological, breakthrough or whatever. But it was really, the more I thought about it, the more interesting it is. So if you look at your brain's entire capacity to have memories, you hold a memory, and that entire bank, let's say that entire bank fills up with one day. Well, that's one really long day. But when you're 2 days old, for example, you've cut that time in half of what you can remember. And in 3 days, it's a third, and 4 days, it's a fourth. And so the more days you cram into this time, each day takes up a little bit less space in this memory bank, if you will. So now when you're talking 50, 60, 70 years of something, everything is so compressed. So it feels like it's going so much faster because you have less room, if you will, for those memories. And I know it's kind of simplifying, but it's a reminder of the more days you add, the faster they go. It's an interesting perspective to keep in front of us.
Yep. But we enjoy life.
Yeah,
I will say
absolutely.
that. We enjoy our life and just try to make sure that I've never been really good at saying no. And that's a flaw. Because I think there are times you need to say no.
Yeah.
And but I've never been super good at it. And I remember several years a Jim Carrey movie came out that was entitled Yes.
Yes Man.
Yeah, Yes Man.
Yeah.
And he just said yes to everything.
Yeah.
And he was just living it up. And I thought, well, I've done that before and it wasn't as fun. Because he was saying
You mean
yes
it
to all
wasn't
these
like the
fun
movies?
things. Yeah. So, I mean, yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll do that. And most of the stuff that I've said yes through the years required work, not hang gliding over the Machu Picchu.
Right.
So, at any rate, knowing when to say yes, when to say no, it's an ongoing lesson that we all struggle with.
Yeah, and keep it in balance.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, let's talk Bible for a few minutes while I got you here and you're all dressed up and everything. We're visiting the church in Smyrna this week. And again, not to recap the entire sermon, but just to kind of mention actual church, actual location, physical location. What is it now? Where can we compare it to, geographically? What's
Well, Izmir is
today?
a big city. It's Izmir, Turkey, the third largest city in Turkey now. It sits it's southwestern Turkey. It sits right on the coast. It's not right on the Aegean Sea. It's actually the Gulf of Izmir that obviously empties out into the Aegean Sea, but it's still a major port today, and it's a big city. The ruins are there, but I think only partially. As I've said before on these broadcasts, Ephesus is the best preserved of the ancient cities. You kind of have pretty much the full city there. Because it's away from a metropolitan area. And it's probably 35 miles south of Izmir, and it's kind of out by itself. But Smyrna is kind of right in the heart of a modern city. So you have some of these ruins that are right there in the center of the city. Some of the pictures that we showed on Sunday, as I'm making a picture out, of course, across the agora, or what was the marketplace, the primary center of coming and going and buying and selling, there's a parking garage, 5 or 6 level parking garage just right across there.
2,000 years old.
2,000 years old, boy, it's amazing. It all used to be underground. But there's enough there to where, you spend a significant portion of the day there. So it was a major city. Back in the day, you probably couldn't have found a more important city. It was thriving, bustling, very beautiful, highly regarded by Rome, and the citizens there highly regarded Rome and the Roman structure. So they had a very cozy relationship, and because of that, they were awarded the rights to construct a temple. And you had to be awarded the rights to build a temple to the emperor. Some places like Ephesus had at least 3 temples to emperors.
Wow.
There was a temple to Domitian, a temple to Trajan, a temple to Hadrian that I know of. There may have been more. Domitian was reigning at the time. Smyrna got the rights to build the temple to Tiberius, who came to fame because he's the one that was reigning at the time of the adult ministry of Christ. And he followed Caesar Augustus and reigned for a long time. Well, they got to build a temple to Tiberius there, which was a major, deal. Very important commercial center because of the port and because of the location on the overland trade routes. So it shared that characteristic with Ephesus, which was also a major commercial center. So it was not only a populous place, it was a kind of a wealthy place as well, except that the Christians, as we read about, were not wealthy.
Yeah.
They paid a stiff price economically for staying true to their faith. But it was a thriving, bustling, had a massive, supposedly the biggest public theater in all of Asia, which you've ever seen the one at Ephesus. It's huge.
Yeah.
And that one still exists at Ephesus, but not in Smyrna. So it's underground somewhere.
Okay.
And unless they destroy a lot of the city, probably, unfortunately, will never be discovered. That's true, by the way, Jim, with a lot of the ancient cities. Some of them are like Ephesus, and you got these great widespread ruins. Philippi is like that, fantastic. Corinth is a lot like that. There's a lot of spread out excavated ruins in the shadow of the big Acrocorinth there. But then there are others like Thessalonica, hardly anything there, because Thessaloniki is one of the largest cities in Greece. So they've just built on top of it. So you'll have these little pockets. But most of the time, if you visit Thessalonica, modern Thessaloniki, the stops that you make when you're there are stops in the modern city.
Yeah.
And you might find a little cutout somewhere where there's obvious architectural ruins, but no big, wide spread out like many of the pictures that I've been showing during this. You have kind of a middle-of-the-road approach with Smyrna. It's a decent-sized set of ruins, but it's not very expansive because most of it still hasn't been excavated yet, and fortunately probably never will. But a very important city.
Yeah. You mentioned the name Smyrna, sounds like myrrh, which, kind of associated with death, with the spices used to embalm and that sort of thing, and likely would have come from here. And when the Lord Jesus writes this letter to that church, he talks about the persecution and likely death that they're going to face. Do we have a reliable understanding of what that persecution and those deaths may have looked like for the church at that time?
I don't have in terms of numbers, and I don't know that would that statistical data in terms of quantifying what that suffering looked like is available. I know you find this hard to believe, but I ran out of time Sunday morning. I did have a story at the very end that I had in my notes that it was very apparent to me that there was not going to be time to convey it. And so I decided to ixnay it, and obviously I had more than sufficient time with my sermon, so it's probably a good thing to take it out. But I regret not being able to share it. But one of the concluding story that I had was that of the Christian bishop Polycarp.
Okay.
You've heard of Polycarp.
Martyred, yeah.
Yeah, he was martyred. The first known and recorded Christian martyr outside of the biblical period.
Okay.
And it was in Smyrna.
Okay.
Polycarp was the bishop of Smyrna.
He was burned, is that right?
He was burned, and here's the story. Some of this stuff can take on legendary status, and so take it for what it's worth. But the story is kind of like Valentine.
Right.
Maybe I should have ixnayed Valentine and talked about Polycarp at the end. But he was burned at the stake. And he was an old man. He was in his 80s.
Okay.
And I think that the tribunal that convicted him of atheism, which was the charge, for rejecting the pagan gods and the emperor god, I think that they felt sorry for him because he was an old man. I think he was 86 years old. And they tried to help him find a way not to be executed. And he wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
Because they said, just what is incense?
Yeah, just do it.
Just do it, and you'll live. And I can't give the quote verbatim because I don't have it in front of me, but he said, for 86 years, I have served my Savior, and he has never done me any harm. How can I now publicly reject my Savior and my King? And he refused to do it. So they had no choice but to convict him. And he was basically burned at the stake. But the fire, it was evidently when they set the fire, it was a windy day. And kind of like a scene out of Lord of the Rings, the fire just basically swept around him in a circular fashion. And so he was burned, but afterwards, it took a while to do it. And afterwards, not only was he burned at the stake, but he was run through with a sword, what remained. And so it was just heinous what was done back in those days. But this was an example of a Smyrnean who did exactly what Jesus said and who remained faithful unto death. I don't think there's any question that he had to have been aware of this letter to the Smyrnians because this was later than the date that we know that Revelation was first circulated in the 90s A.D., most likely. And this happened, a little bit less than 100 years after that or so. And so the first Christian martyr outside of the biblical period was from Smyrna. He was the Christian bishop of Smyrna, which means he was the presiding pastor of the church or the house church movement in Smyrna. And as an old man, he remained obedient to Christ and stayed faithful unto death.
How do you take that example of persecution unto death, of martyrdom, and preach to Pensacola, Florida, 2026, and talk about persecution?
Well,
we don't know that. And I'm not faulting us, but we have nothing to understand what that would be like. And we try to preach that this may be coming, but
Well, I think it's important that we do preach it. It's heavy. And so, there are certain things that weigh a little heavier on a preacher because everybody wants to be inspired on Sunday. And I want people inspired. And so as a preacher, you're trying to figure out, how do I take a message that is kind of categorically negative and convey the message in such a way that people leave up rather than down. They leave inspired. They leave filled with courage. And it is somewhat of a challenge because nobody wants to come and know that, well, okay, we're going to get taught on how to suffer well, today. And yet it's important to convey that because this is super easy for Western Christians like us to miss. Because while everybody, Jesus said that, all who desire to live a godly life in Christ will be persecuted. It's not a quote of Jesus, it's in one of the letters. But that's true. And Jesus did say it, in this world you will have trouble. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you, which is true. So if we live overtly for Jesus, we're unashamed of the gospel, and we testify to the gospel, some form of persecution is inevitable. Now, for us, most of the time, the better word is irritation. Not persecution.
Right, which is hard to deliver.
Now, you might lose a job.
And it's hard to compare.
Yeah, you could lose a job because, people just don't like having you around. You keep a Bible on your desk, or you have Scripture emblazoned on a visible part of your body, or wear Christian jewelry, or like to talk about spiritual things in a way that makes somebody else uncomfortable, and they report you to the boss. That's typically kind of the extent,
Yeah.
or something like that. And it can be costly. I don't want to minimize that. People have lost their incomes and their livelihoods, even in America, because of their faith. But it's not like you're going to be thrown in jail because of your faith, or
Right.
it's not like you're going to be incarcerated or even executed because of your faith. Now, I think it's important to preach that to Western audiences because it is happening in parts of the world
Right.
today.
Right.
Today, pastor friend of mine sent me a video of just one casket after another that's been taken to a burial ground. Guys had them lifted up on their shoulder, just one after another, in Nigeria, where an entire village was basically decimated for worshiping Christ.
Right.
And so these kind of heinous acts and responses happen all around the world today, and we need to be aware of it. And it could happen in our culture. And if you read the rest of the book of Revelation, the heat's going to get turned up. It's one of the signs of the coming of Christ, not only in Revelation, Matthew 24 and 25, and other parts of Scripture make that very clear. Wars and rumors of wars. The love of most will grow cold, but he who endures to the end will be saved. And so I think we need to be confronted with it. And the goal is not to suppress. The goal is not to asphyxiate our congregation, but it is to enlighten our congregation by making them aware that we do have a testimony. We do need to be bold and courageous with it, but with our eyes wide open, understanding that the gospel cuts, and people are not always going to respond to it with warm fuzzies and with chicken dinners. They may not only reject the message, they may well reject you because of it. So the message applies, even though it may not be a message of stay faithful unto death. That may not be reality, although it's truth.
It is.
We
Yeah.
need to be faithful unto death. But be faithful, I think the larger idea is be faithful no matter the cost, right? So that's the import. And you hope that what people take away from that is a deep conviction and understanding, you know what? I love the Lord. And I'm reminded today of everything that he gave his life for me. Why shouldn't I be willing to give my life for him? And so leaving with an inspired confidence. The worst they could do for me or to me is kill me. And that may not be the worst thing they could do to me.
Right.
That may be the best thing that they could do to me. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. I reminded a congregation just a few hours ago of that very thing. To live is Christ, to die is gain. Paul was in prison suffering for his faith when he wrote the letter to the Philippians, a letter that I know you love very much. And he makes another counter that's where he says to live is Christ, to die is gain. But right there in that same chapter, chapter 1, he says, what shall I do? I desire to depart and be with Christ, which is better by far. But for your sake, I realize there's an advantage to me hanging around here for a while longer.
Yeah.
So what shall it be? I do not know. And then he comes to the conclusion, I think God's will is going to be for me to be released from this mess and to continue the journey with you, which is exactly what happened. But I love that statement. I desire, and he's writing it from a prison cell. And again, as I indicated on Sunday morning, people didn't serve long prison sentences. Right. Prison was not there to rehabilitate a person. It wasn't there for them to serve a long term. You didn't serve long terms. Prisons were holding areas until a final verdict could be given. Either they would turn you loose or they would take your life. That's typically what happened. And so Paul knows he's got a death sentence hanging over his head. And But he has a word from the Lord. If that's what happens to me, it's better to live as Christ, to die as gain.
Yeah.
But I think God's will is he's not finished with me yet. And so he comes to the conclusion that he's going to be released, and he was. So all that to say, that ought to be our attitude.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't be afraid to die. I'm not afraid to die.
Right.
I'm not in any, because I'm an American Christian. We live in a prosperous land, many blessings, and I love my family. We all want a little more time. But that doesn't mean we have to live trembling in fear of death. No believer should live in fear, trembling because death is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Death for the believer is profit. Death for the believer is blessing. Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord. Death for the believer is precious. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. That's all counterintuitive stuff. Yeah. Nobody walking the streets would ever say that, right? Death is loss. Death is a curse, right? Not a blessing, not something that's precious. It's junk. But the Christian sees what is to come as far better.
Yeah.
And that's what gives us courage in order to be stalwart, to endure without losing heart in these important days.
Yeah.
So be thankful that we've got it good. May not always be that way. I hope not, for the sake of my kids and grandkids.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in the rule of law, constitutional freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly. May God always give us those inalienable rights to express in our country. But if it doesn't, as it did not for these early Christians, may we keep our testimony and keep it strong.
Yeah, I was reminded in hearing this sermon, and I'm pretty sure you've preached this before. I may be misquoting it, but to die for the Lord is easy, or can be easy. To live for Him is harder.
That's right.
Because you can amp yourself up to be ready to die in the face of that kind of persecution. Recount your testimony in Jesus. No, you're put to death, which doesn't sound pleasant. I'm not saying that's something, and I do appreciate the martyrdom that is taking place around the world. But to put to death ourselves daily, to be a sacrifice daily, a living sacrifice daily, can sometimes be harder than actually just to end that, to be put to death.
Very profound, Jim. And I tell you, who drove that home for me, years ago, we had Edgar Harrell speak at our church, World War II veteran, who was on the USS Indianapolis when it sank.
Wow.
And they were, of course, carrying the bomb, and then were torpedoed. And most of those guys, there were only a handful of them that survived. Most of them, the sharks got them.
Wow.
Well, we had him at Hillcrest. Just on a lark, we got a call, would you like to have this guy? And I thought, man, a veteran community, let's have him. And it was one of the best things we ever done. The Northwest Hall was packed. Mm-hmm. And that's the only time we've ever had an event in the Northwest Hall where we had the chairs set up in rows. No tables. Packed. And that guy, God had to have been around 90 at the time. Still a clear mind, tremendous storytelling ability. And he was in the water forever, dodging sharks, and many of his buddies didn't make it, and several of them did by the time the PBY, the aircraft that landed in the water, got to them and rescued them. But he made the statement, and I wrote the statement in the flyleaf of my preaching Bible, not this one, but the one I typically preach from. And he said, and I'm going to jack it up because I don't have it in front of me, but he said, most people think it's really hard to die. He said, it's easy to die. It's difficult to live. Mm-hmm. Now, he was applying that to this whole business of staying alive in the water with sharks swimming around you when your skin has been burned by oil coming from that ship that was ignited, And so it was a mess. And he said, giving up is easy, Dying is not difficult. That would have been the easiest thing in the world, would to drift off whatever he was floating on. And, they say drowning is like going to sleep. And he said that would have been easy. He said what was hard was to constantly be vigilant in order to stay alive. Mm. And I think that there's a lot of application in that to living the Christian life. Mm-hmm. It'd be easy to give up. It takes vigilance and diligence, vigilance and diligence.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Let me get it right.
Yeah. Don't misquote it.
Vigilance and diligence to endure. Mm-hmm. And especially when it gets that difficult.
Yeah.
When you can't buy fruits and vegetables because you got a target on your back.
Yeah.
Oh, those people live down the street from me. Don't sell them anything. They don't worship. And they're strange people. And you can't hire this guy. Or we will hire you because we know you're good as a stonemason. But your initiation rite is to come and go through this aspect of emperor worship or our patron god.
Yeah.
Christian couldn't do that. So it was. We're softer than most generations of Christians have been. There are advantages to what we enjoy in life, and I'm not saying that obviously we're against that. We're not. We're thankful for the blessings. Mm-hmm. But the reality is we don't have the same perspective that they do.
Right.
We don't live under the same kind of oppression that they lived under. These people had targets on their back both from the Romans and from the Jewish establishment. Yeah. They were the victims of constant oppression. And so that's what we want people to realize. And it does two things when we do. It prepares us for what may be a less than ideal future if it were to ever come. But then two, hopefully it gives us a greater sense of gratitude for the blessings that we do enjoy, for the liberties that we enjoy, for the freedoms that we enjoy. It helps us to say, thank you, Jesus. Only by your grace was I, my parents, my children born in this country.
Yeah.
Between the Atlantic and the Pacific, between Canada and Mexico. We didn't have anything to do with that. That's totally the grace of God. So hopefully one fringe benefit of being reminded of tougher generations is that it helps us to be grateful for all that the Lord has done for us.
Yeah, be grateful, be encouraged, be ready.
Be ready and
overcome. Yeah.
And be faithful, even if you're staring death in the face.
All right. That's a good place for a period
Amen.
Today. We got to wrap it up. We do appreciate you joining us as always. Please continue to do so and let us know how we can answer your questions or minister to you. Send us an email, talk to us on a Sunday morning. We're grateful for your time, grateful for your faithfulness coming to church and being a part of what Hillcrest is doing. So thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Looking
brother.
good. Next week, I'm going to dress down. I'm going to wear a T-shirt and shorts and just make it comfy, and you can wear your tuxedo. We'll be good.
No, I don't own a tuxedo, and I'm too cheap to rent one for this show. So I'm liable to be back in my comfy clothes next week.
Fair enough. Well, tune in next week to see what we're wearing. We appreciate you. God bless you. Thanks for watching The Locker Room.